I'd like to introduce Scott Monty from the Ford Motor Company. He heads global social media for Ford. He's a social media expert and gotten lots of awards and done all kinds of things. So welcome, Scott.
Thank you, sir. Glad to be here. You know, just by way of preview, you know, Ekaterina and I go way back, and I've never had to follow her. I've never had to follow Ekaterina at a speech before, and one of the challenges is, what do you do after a stripping hologram? And I know my name is Monty, and ladies, I'm sorry, the full Monty is not going to be here, so count yourself lucky for that one.
All right, well, I want to welcome Scott to Marketing Made Simple TV, and for the first time, we have a studio audience. So could I have a round? Oh, talk really close? Okay.
Watch that guy in the blue shirt in the back. He knows what he's talking about for audio. Ladies and gentlemen.
So, to kick it off, can I get a big round of applause to start the show? Well, thank you, and welcome to Marketing Made Simple TV. We have Scott Monty with us in a live show. And Scott, let's start off. I know Ford had a big announcement this morning. So can you tell us what that announcement was?
Sure. Today we were just over opening Social Media Week over at Bloomberg, and we took the audience through kind of a history of what we've done in social media and the lessons that we've learned along the way. It may have seemed like a giant Ford infomercial, but what we wanted to do is we wanted to bring out some universal truths that we could all learn from, whether we work at agencies or brands, companies large or small. And some of the things we considered were, first of all, if you've got a great story to tell, or if you've got a great product, rather, let go of your fear and let others tell the story for you. That was the lesson out of the Fiesta movement. Let other people take the vehicle and say whatever they wanted to say for 6 months. And we amplified it. When we launched the Explorer on Facebook rather than at an auto show, the lesson we learned was the complete integration of earned, owned, and paid media together. It's not enough just to have an advertising plan parallel to a PR plan parallel to your social media efforts. If you're going to do this well, if you're going to hit it out of the park, all three have to be completely integrated to really have a huge impact. When we used an orange puppet to launch the new global focus, yes, a puppet, the notion there was that people are interested in personalities, not product features. Right? They were there to follow the web series, the adventures of these two guys, a zany puppet and his official Ford handler, and the Ford Focus was the backdrop. Right? So we told their story, and people were interested in their interactions, not necessarily in the vehicle. That was an added benefit. And then last year we did Random Acts of Fusion, which I can't even begin to explain here because it was such a complex transmedia campaign. The lesson out of that was keep it simple. You know, keep it simple so people can understand it, so you can tell somebody what it's about in an elevator pitch, not, you know, over the course of a 5-minute conversation. Right? And to remember our own lessons. We actually took our eye off the ball there. We did not have completely integrated, earned, owned, and paid efforts for that, and it hurt us. Right? And then lastly, we're doing a program called Back At You for the new Fusion. People are raving about the Ford Fusion, and we want to call them out. We actually just changed the cover image for our Fusion Facebook page yesterday to a picture of the car and what a fan had said. You know, thanks for... I think it was something like, thanks for getting me out of my Prius, right? That's the ultimate compliment for us, because that's our competition. So with the Back At You campaign, we're calling out people, we're thanking them, we're giving them surprises, large and small, to appreciate their appreciation, essentially. And the lesson that we learned there was to always take the time to recognize and appreciate your fans and your customers, because they're the reason you're here in the first place. And that brings us to our special announcement.
Yes.
I know I've been making you wait for this, Jeff. We announced today that today we are reopening the Fiesta movement. We've got a new 2014 Ford Fiesta with a 1.0-liter EcoBoost engine, so a turbocharged engine in this little car. Great fuel economy. Some of the same high-tech connectivity that you've seen in lots of our other Ford vehicles, actually all of our other Ford vehicles. Right? So this car is going to have it all. And we're selecting 100 people from across the country. We're going to reserve a couple of spots for celebrities and some alumni of the first Fiesta movement. but we're going to amplify all of their activity. And we're not just going to do it the way we did it last time. We're going to use paid media to really promote this. We have good relationships with Summer X Games and American Idol and Bonnaroo and lots of other digital properties. And all of the content that these 100 agents are going to create is going to be eligible to be part of, or to actually be the basis of, our traditional advertising campaign. So our agency is not going to do any creative work other than coordinating and collaborating with our Fiesta agents, using their content for our print brochures and for billboards and for television advertising and for everything that we do. This is the new marketing for Ford Motor Company with the Fiesta.
It's interesting, Scott, that you come up with all these creative things. Explain to me, when you work for a product company like Ford, what do you talk about? Do you talk about cars? Do you talk about, it seems to me, you talk about what is the experience people have with the vehicles.
Well, I think that's just it. You know, of course we can talk about product. Everybody loves to see the product. You know, and you look at Mustang, for example. All we have to do is put a photo, even a slice of a photo of the taillight of the Mustang up on the Mustang Facebook page, and it's like putting a drop of blood in the water and the sharks just swirl around, right? And we've got, actually the Mustang is the most liked automobile on Facebook. It's nearing 5 million fans, right? And we have about 80 different Facebook pages for Ford that total about 15 million fans at this point. So the Mustang makes up a good portion of it. And those hardcore automotive fans, they absolutely want to see the product. But there's other people that are interested in, well, how does this fit my lifestyle? You know, you look at millennials, and quite frankly, they're just interested in getting from point A to point B. How can they keep up their connected lifestyle while they're inside the car? Walt Mossberg, a couple of years ago when we were at CES, looked at our strategy and he said, this is great, because I get into a car now and it's like stepping back into the 1950s. Right? When you get into a Ford, we want you to bring your life with you in a safe way, of course. You know, that's our primary concern, is safety. And that's why it's not just enough to say, you know, slap an iPad into the dashboard or let your phone do everything. The car has to be able to control it, and you need to be able to interact with it with your voice. And that's what younger people are interested in, right? But they're also interested in, you know, think about it for a minute. Trust in corporations and in government and in NGOs over the past few years has just gone way down. It's up a little bit this year over last, but still, it's down. So people don't trust companies anymore. Who do they trust? Third-party experts, analysts, academics, maybe the media to a certain extent. But more importantly, they trust people like them. People like them. And think about the last time you made a major purchase decision in your life, whether it's, you know, a smartphone, a tablet, flat screen TV, maybe one of your hats.
Sure.
You know, who did you ask? The people that are in your life, your friends, your family, your coworkers, people you trust. And now that trust is being extended online. Maybe the people you haven't even met before. So this combination of people you know and people you have acquaintances with, because they're doing things online consistently and repeatedly, that's driving trust. And if we can make it apparent to people that there are people like that working at Ford, and there are people like that that drive Fords, and we get the conversation going, maybe it starts around an image of the product. Right. But that's what gets people more interested.
I think one of your good takeaways here, too, is that not everyone's alike. As you said, you have hardcore car people who love the Mustang and want to see the product. But you have other people who, they just want it, they want transportation. Or they want the car to be a reflection of their personality. So I think there's probably a lot of that, too.
Yeah, you know, one of the things that we've actually done to address that is not only the 80 or so Facebook pages, but on our social hub, which is called Ford Social. You can find it at social.ford.com. What we've done there is we've implemented a badging system. Okay, and this isn't meant to be like Foursquare where you have to earn badges. It's actually meant for people to show their pride and to show the things that they're interested in. So somebody who's got a Mustang badge, I'm pretty sure they're not going to be going out and getting one of our hybrid or electric vehicle badges, right? But the EV people, I think they secretly lust after Mustangs. They're going to go and get the other badge. But the point is that what we've allowed people to do is to build out their profile with things that resonate with them. And then what that allows us to do, if we're bringing our A game, is to customize the content that we deliver to them. right? So the Mustang guy isn't getting our electric vehicle information, and on and on and on. And it's not just vehicles. We've got, you know, pet lovers and tech geeks and musicians and things like that. So we've tried to come across, from a lifestyle perspective, what's the kind of content that people are interested in from Ford Motor Company, and then to deliver on that promise of custom content for the right audiences, in the right place, at the right time.
That's a great point. It comes back to relevance, and being able to share the right information with the right person one-to-one, I think, is more important than ever. One thing I want to say to the audience is this is not just up here talking. So if you want to ask Scott a question, raise your hand. I'll bring a microphone over to you, and you can ask a question directly of Scott. I'm going to ask you about something we...
They're all shocked.
Yeah.
Scott, what's your hashtag?
What's my hashtag, my Twitter handle? Scott Monty.
Yeah.
SCOTTMONTY.
I'm Fearless Comp. That's my name.
I'll say you are.
Because I'm known as the fearless competitor, so that's why I use that one. Yes?
How many Ford Fiesta agents did you have the first time around?
The question was how many Ford Fiesta agents we had the first time, 4 years ago. We had 100. It seems like the magic number. We based it on a couple of things. One, it was a nice round number. Two, it was based on the number of European spec Fiestas that we could get allotted to the program, because we actually had to ship those over from overseas. The vehicle wasn't available in the States for anybody outside of that program. So it was a very special arrangement that we put together. And then further, what we tried to do is geographically, we tried to spread those 100 across the country, and we tried to create a representative demographic of what our audience and what the country kind of looked like. So it was an interesting exercise in crunching the numbers and making sure we got the right people.
Good. I want to ask you about a couple other things, like on social media. I think I heard you say one time that talking is shouting on social media. That was one of your blog posts, I think, recently. What did you mean by that?
Well, I said we should talk, not shout. You know, I mean, look, when I was a kid, years ago, and you could walk into the post office or the bank on a Saturday morning with your mom or dad, and the person behind the desk knew them, and maybe you by name, in a small town, certainly. But think of how far we've come. Today, you need 3 forms of ID before you can get out of line. Right? And how inhuman we've become with mass marketing. And what's social? It seemed to be another channel where marketers can simply mass market at people. And we're missing the equation if we treat it that way. What are people in social for? Relationships. I was a classics major as an undergrad. I know you're all wondering, where the hell is he going with this? The Latin root of the word relationship is relatio. Relatio. And it means to return to or to bring back. When you think about what social allows us to do as we build relationships, is to return to those golden days of yesteryear, where it was about the firm handshake, the eye contact, the time when your word was your bond, when relationships in business mattered more than any kind of mass marketing. I think that's what social has the promise to allow us to do, if we will give it the chance, if we will take the extra steps, not to shout at people, not to make them hear our message, but to think like them, quite frankly. There's another quote I like from one of my heroes. If you wish to persuade me, you must think my thoughts, feel my feelings, and speak my words. And that's from Cicero, from 2,000 years ago. So you think about how little we as humans have changed over that time. The technology's changed, certainly, but we still want the same things. We want what's in it for us and the people that we care about. We want to be heard, and we want to be part of something bigger than ourselves. Right? So think about during the Super Bowl, right, when Oreo put out their instantly created response to the blackout. People shared that. Why? Not because it was an ad, or because it looked like an ad, because it was cool. It resonated with them contextually and was relevant at that place and time, and they were proud to share it. As marketers, we need to think like consumers, not like marketers. Who's going to be proud to share our content? What are we going to do to make other people look good? And then we look good by association.
Yeah, I like that. It's really about making other people look good. And I want to, last time we were together, we talked about this, because we hear a lot of labels, right? We hear, oh, I'm a B2B company. There was a question earlier, does Facebook work for B2B companies? And other people are in B2B, B2C. And I know you've got an opinion on this, what it's really all about. So why don't you share that with us?
This is going to sound a little vulgar, but it's all P2P. It's people to people. You know, what is business? It's people collaborating to help derive an outcome. The outcome may be something you're creating together. The outcome may be a sale. The outcome may be somebody's more or less satisfied with something than when they began, but that's business. And, you know, B2B, yeah, there are people behind all of those businesses, and they travel, and they talk to other people. It's the same concept. It's just you may have to approach it tactically a little bit differently, but strategically, it's the same concept.
Sure, when you think about it, these are people who are, you know, they have to get their kids ready for school, right? They have to deal with issues. They have to pay the bills. You know, we all have the same challenges, and a lot of people in this room have the same challenges you deal with every day. But, you know, you rent cars, and you get exposed to cars that way, and there's all different ways. So it's dealing with people. So in 2013, right, new year, what have you learned of social media? What do you see happening in social media? And what do you think the future holds in the near term?
Well, I think one of the big things right now is just there's such an overwhelming amount of data and information and content out there. It's getting really crowded. And people say content is king. Well, it's not. You know, I mentioned contextual relevance before. I think context is king. You know, and less is more in this case. We would rather err on the side of quality rather than of quantity when it comes to the content that we create at Ford. You know, there was a news spoof site that came out with a story. Ford announces 15 millionth press release, and they weren't too far off. You know, and we looked at ourselves and we well, what are we doing? Why are we clogging up the intertubes with all of this junk? Right? And think about it from, you know, average consumers. They're not going to subscribe to more than 5 to 10 brands to follow what they're doing. You know, if you want to get on that hot list, then you better be really, really good. Have either really great content that allows them to achieve a goal, or, you know, makes them look good in some way. So I think we're going to see people dialing back this year, whether it's unsubscriptions or unfollows or what have you. And I think, you know, it's partly up to the industry, the social industry, to figure out how we funnel some of this stuff and how we aggregate it better. And part of it's part of the marketers, on the marketers' shoulders, to create better content that, you know, that, again, it makes other people look good, that isn't in volume, but is there in quality.
I like that point. I think one of the lessons or takeaways here is maybe instead of, you know, I think it was Marketing Profs that 9 out of 10 companies are doing content marketing today. Well, the concept is if everybody's doing it, they're probably not very good at it. So maybe the answer is to do less content and just do better content. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I look at, you know, some of the stuff that we've done in the past. The Focus Doug, the Orange Puppet video series. There were 50 videos. And some of them were short, some of them were long. Some of them were hits, others fell flat. But overall, once the whole series kind of finished its arc, we had people coming back to us saying, when are you going to produce more? This is gold. Keep going with this story, right? So they didn't care whether the story arc was done. They wanted to see the characters continuing. To us, that was a huge win, to know that we actually created something that people were looking for, that people wanted more of. You know, we would love to do more of that.
Talk to me about the power of story, because I'm a big believer that, you know, don't just create individual pieces of content, but tell a story. What have you learned about content marketing and telling stories with content?
Let me tell you a story about that, Joe. You know, it kind of goes back to our founder. You know, we're lucky. I say Ford is probably the most human of all of the auto companies. We're the only company that still has our founder's name on the logo. The Ford family still has a controlling stake in our voting stock. Henry was part of our corporate process for the first 40 years of the company. We're only 109 years old, so that's almost the balance of our existence. So when you think about that, you think about what Henry did, it really changed the face of the earth.
Oh, sure.
You know, and his vision, and we found this old Saturday Evening Post advertisement in archives. And Alan, our CEO, Alan Mullally, had it blown up and has it hanging on his wall. And it's kind of a Norman Rockwell kind of watercolor. This family on a hillside overlooking the valley below, and in the distance, the very far distance, there's the Ford factory, and of course there's cars going along the road. And the caption was, "Opening the highways to all mankind." Right? And Henry explained in his vision, back when they did advertising in long-form copy, about how he wanted to, it was within his grasp to put personal mobility into everybody's hands, whether or not you were rich. Because at the time, automobiles were more the playthings of the rich. And Henry, of course, in 1914 raised the minimum wage, or raised the working wage to $5 a day for his workers so that they could afford the very vehicles that they were building. Something that wasn't done before. And he reduced the number of hours worked a day from 9 hours to 8 hours. That's where we get our 8-hour workday from. So we've got this heritage with Henry and this vision, opening the highways to all mankind. And you fast forward to today, and the cool thing is we're still executing on Henry's vision today. Except we're doing affordable fuel economy for everyone and affordable in-car technology for everyone. So again, these aren't playthings for the rich. This isn't some science experiment. We've got a range of choices, whether you want, you know, a turbocharged vehicle or hybrid or plug-in hybrid or electric. It's what we call the power of choice, right? And you're somewhere on that spectrum. And with technology, we actually started with the Ford Sync infotainment system in the Ford Focus, our lowest end car at the time, and then brought it out to the rest of our vehicles, showing that it wasn't just for the luxury market. This is something we fundamentally believe in. So when you consider our corporate mission and our reason for being is based on the origins within Henry and the great stories that exist around Henry and his time and how we've continued to be part of the American fabric since then, the global fabric, really. We are ripe for storytelling.
And I think a takeaway for the audience here too is, can you tell a story with your products or services? You know, can you find the story in what you do and look back and think creatively? Let's talk about the problem of commoditization, right? If I'm shopping for a car, I've got a bewildering number of cars I can choose. How do you break out from the pack? You know, whether it's content marketing and everybody's doing it, or I'm in the car business and there's plenty of people building cars, you know, how do people differentiate themselves?
As far as we're concerned, there's one company that's building cars. Well, look, I think one of the first things that we had to do as a company was look at our own plan, look at our own portfolio, and look at the markets that we were serving, or frankly, we're not serving. Well, for a while we were known as the F-150 and Mustang company. And while that's great, and those are fantastic products, we wanted to be known as more than that. You know, we wanted to be leaders in fuel economy, and in quality, and in safety, and in technology. And we made a real concerted effort to have small, medium, and large cars, trucks, and utilities. The whole family of vehicles, so that when people walk into a Ford dealership, they've got it all right there. Okay? Now, that being said, understand that there's all sorts of, you know, competing elements out there. And frankly, when you could view a car as a commodity, I think the difference comes down to service. You know, when you're in a commoditized market, service is what you have to compete on. Either price or service, right? Nobody wants to compete on price because that's a zero-sum game. You can only hit so low, and it squeezes profitability. But how do you serve people? How do you actually focus more on the service rather on the sale? And frankly, for us, when that comes down to dealerships, which is where most people have their interaction with automotive companies, that's where we have to do the work. We've actually got a customer experience operation going on right now, where we're going to look at how things are done in the dealership. We're going to try to modernize things. We're going to try to make it more of a seamless customer experience, whether they've experienced us online at the corporate level, or whether they're walking into the dealership for the first time.
Interesting that you want to do the whole thing. I think we have a question here.
Talk a lot about content, customer segments, and even channel distribution. Can you talk a little about how you reach customers at the right time, since people are probably buying cars in different phases of their lives at different times of the year? How do you get them at the sweet spot?
Well, this is really where the notion of social media being a commitment, not a campaign, is really important to us. You know, we are there every single day without fail, whether we've got a campaign running or not. And we have to be. It's the expectation now. You know, we like to say that we subscribe to the Woody Allen theory of social media. 90% of social media is just showing up, right? The Yogi Berra corollary is that's the other half that's hard, right? It's what you do when you get there. And people expect that. So whether it's customer service or people just asking product questions, and whether it's on Twitter, in discussion forums, on blogs, on a site like Get Satisfaction, we got to be everywhere, right? So we've got a team that is monitoring and is responding to folks along the way. And the notion there is that if you're always on, if you have that foundation in place, when you do have those campaigns still, the spike that you have around paid media on those campaigns, because there's a limited time when you're rolling out a new model. You know, you're not doing it all throughout the year. But then that media won't have to work as hard when you're ready for that campaign spike. And you're more likely to have picked people up along the way wherever they happen to be in the sales cycle. You know, and in the auto industry, and it's not just, you know, complex sales like autos anymore. We're seeing it in consumer goods where people have so many touch points along the way. And in the auto industry, there are about 19 different sites or places they visit before they actually make their decision. So we have lots of opportunities all along the way, not just that television ad, or not just that billboard. You know, it's multi-channel, and there are multiple opportunities. To us, that's why that consistency of effort is really important, and giving people a place to go to get more information, or to get the next level of information, or to sign up, or whatever.
So when you don't know when the trigger event's going to happen, I'm sure there's certain things that could drive it, like marriages and graduations and college graduations, but you know, sometimes you don't know it. You just have to be there at the right time. So let's talk a little. Question? Yeah, go ahead. I'll repeat it.
Perception becomes reality. So how does an American manufacturer compete with foreign cars, which they build a high quality and have less recall? So how do you compete? How do you get a market message out there to deal with that?
Let me just restate the question. The question was, how do you compete against perceptions? And if there's a perception that foreign nameplates, which are mostly made in the U.S. now, have better, more reliable cars, how do you overcome those perceptions?
Well, part of it is just doing things consistently and repeatedly over time. There was a foreign competitor in 2010 that had a little recall problem, you may recall. Sorry about the pun. With a little unintended acceleration, you know, and people didn't even want to believe it to begin with. You know, their quality had been so consistent for so long that people gave them a pass. And then when it became, you know, more of a reality to people, their reputation took a hit. Ford, similarly, has been in a position over the past few years where our quality has been going up and is actually on par with the Japanese competitors. We really benchmark ourselves against Toyota and Honda, not against GM and Chrysler. Those are our real competitors, right? That's the minds we need to change. And in the smile states, you know, the coasts particularly, is where we have the greatest challenge in front of us. Because those are the import markets. That's exactly where the vehicles arrive and where they're sold most frequently. And our biggest opportunity is to simply get people in Ford vehicles. That's why for the last 4 years, our corporate brand slogan was Drive One. Drive One, try it out, right? Because everybody's operating on these ancient assumptions of, and we let a whole generation down. No question about that. In the 70s and 80s and 90s, we let a whole generation of people down with the quality of our vehicles. And it's an uphill battle to fight every single day. But we have the product superiority now. We can prove it, right? We took out $23.5 billion of our own money in 2006 and financed our own plan to put it into R&D, and to put it in top design, and to put it into fuel economy, and to put it into technology and quality and safety. And those numbers are all proving themselves out now.
Interesting, and I think it shows the importance of consistency and doing the right thing all the time, over time, because you obviously don't overcome perceptions quickly. That's something that takes a lot of years. Let's talk about the ROI of social media, because I know you're always going to get this question. And a lot of people here do social media, and they work for people that say, okay, what is this doing for us? I think you had an example you cited that kind of pointed to an incident that happened.
Well, this is my favorite phrase. People say, what's the ROI of social media? And first of all, I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's fair to ask this of social media. Do we ask what the ROI of advertising is, or of PR? No, you ask about specific executions, not as the entire practice within marketing or communications. But I say, what's the ROI of the phone on your desk? What's the ROI of putting on your pants? Right? Hard to measure. Right? Essential that you put them on every day. Negative consequences for not doing it. Right? So think about social media from that perspective. And when you're going out and you're trying to prove something, whether it's using social as an awareness builder, or as a reputation changer, or as a sales lead driver, whatever it is, benchmark yourself, pre and post. If you're looking to change opinion, and then measure it afterwards. We had a woman who wrote a scathing review in November of 2008 about the entire U.S. auto industry when we were in front of Congress with our two friends. Fun times. And we invited her and 49 other top women from the Blog Her conference, top influencers, to come to the Chicago Assembly Plant that day in July. The Blog Her conference was in Chicago. We set up a whole day. Executives from, quality, green, safe, and smart, all those pillars that I talked about before. Our resident futurist was there to tell them about how we think about the world around us and how we don't just think about cars. Right? We put them through that. We had Larry, the plant manager, who was like 6'6", looked like Jesse the Body Ventura, right? Big teddy bear of a guy though. He took them all on a tour. And then we had them all in Ford and Lincoln vehicles after the program to drive them. At the beginning of the program, we surveyed every single one of them. We said, what do you think of Ford? And then they gave us words like found on road dead, fix or repair daily, unreliable, cheap, the usual claptrap of negative stereotypes that we're trying to overcome. And only 27% of them thought positively of Ford. At the end of the day, after all of those activities, and time with Larry, 96% of them thought positively of Ford. I don't know what the hell was wrong with the other 4%, but you can't win over everybody. And the words that they used were innovative, luxury, technology, green, sustainability, next car, And that woman that wrote the scathing blog post went back and wrote a post that was even longer that said how Ford Motor Company, the women of Ford, and a guy named Larry changed my life forever. Right? And she's influential. So she was influencing other people in her network.
I love that story because the excuse I hear a lot of times of why people don't want to get on social media is like, oh my God, someone might say something bad about us. Well, I think the lesson there is embrace your enemies, right? If someone says something bad about you, embrace them. And you can turn them around, and they can become your biggest champions, too.
Absolutely, and quite frankly, they're saying negative things about you without you even paying attention.
Yes.
So why not embrace it, turn them around, pay attention, do something about it.
Yeah. I'll tell you a funny story. I've been writing a blog for 7 years, and one time I wrote a blog article, and a couple people wrote some very scathing comments that what I wrote was inappropriate. And I was busy, and I didn't have time to respond to it. And a couple days later, I went back, and 12 other people had responded, attacking the person who attacked me. So by not doing anything, I did the right thing. It was an interesting experience. So, all right, we're going to have to wrap up the show here, and I hope everyone had a good time. Any last questions before we close it out? Okay, I want to thank everyone for attending this show. Can we have a round of applause for